housing, it's an easy leap to say those priorities have a social justice and faith-based way about them. And you can change the language to say, my advocacy for community spaces is really driven by a belief that we need to be together, and we need community spaces to draw us together. Climate action is simply care for the planet, the creation that God made for us. And that building affordable housing is about compassion for basic human needs. And I'm drawn to those priorities because of my faith. So I don't just typically say it that way. So today I'll try to weave my typical stump speech together with some faith-based themes. But I'll warn you that my faith-based themes are a little folksy and basic. And I know our church is full of retired pastors and priests and deacons and professors. So just please give me some grace. So. All right, here we go. So I love Iowa City. I think Iowa City is the best city in Iowa. I'm proud of it, and that's why it's my forever home. Our community is inclusive, it's environmentally conscientious, and we're fiscally sound. I want to build on the momentum that we have despite a state government that's working very, very hard to set us back. Now, when I say I love Iowa City, I don't simply mean that I have positive feelings towards Iowa City. I mean love as a verb, as something that you do. Loving your neighbor in a biblical sense means doing things. And that understanding of love certainly comes from Sunday school and from many sermons, specifically about agape love. In many ways, this is why I want to serve on city council. It's not for the terrible pay and for getting yelled at. It's because I love the residents of this community and I want to serve them. Now, I'm running for city council because building consensus, thinking creatively, and developing a long-term vision is the core of my work as an architect. My experience with construction and infrastructure planning, my knowledge of our not-for-profit ecosystem, and my experience professionally balancing the many contrasting needs of multiple stakeholders, I think would make city council stronger. Now, before I talk about my top priorities for city council, I'll tell you just a little bit more about me. I'm a farm kid from north central Iowa, and as I alluded to earlier, I was raised Lutheran, ELCA Lutheran, and my family was blessed to have a larger-than-life character in our family, and that was my Uncle Paul. Paul was a Lutheran minister who always wore his collar. He was very proud of being a minister. He also believed that wearing the collar would help him get out of speeding tickets. Paul is a legend in our family because he was a very, very liberal Christian. Paul was marrying gay people in the 1970s and almost got kicked out of the church for it. In addition to LGBTQ issues, he was also way ahead of his time on race. The story that always chokes me up is that his family tells is they were on a family vacation in Gulf Shores in April of 1968, and they were in a diner when someone announced that Martin Luther King Jr. had been killed. And everyone erupted clapping and laughing and smiling.
Gulf Shores is in Alabama.
And but he was wearing his collar, and he stood up on the booth, and he got people to quiet, and he asked them to pray with him. And he was able to give a little mini sermon to a bunch of Southern racists. And that put him and his family in great risk, but he did it because he thought it was the right thing to do. So I was very blessed to have that sort of background as faith can be a progressive and liberal thing, not necessarily a hate others thing. So anyway, though Paul is long dead, he continues to inspire me and think about the way that I want to live my life. Now, as for me, after high school, I found my way to Luther College, and while at Luther, I studied political science and music. I took quite a few religion and philosophy courses too, though, and I studied Martin Luther, the German one, found out that he was a rabid anti-Semite, but also learned that faith without works is dead. And I'm not going to get caught up on the causal relationships of faith and works and salvation, but I did learn that we have to do things. We can't just talk about them and think about them nicely. I also learned about the theological values of hope, charity, and how that's related to the Platonic virtues of prudence, justice, and temperance. By the time I graduated college, I was out of the closet as gay. Iowa did not seem safe, didn't seem welcoming, and it didn't seem like a place I wanted to live. So I moved east. Then in 2009, again because of Jerry, I actually met Chris here in Iowa City. And after a long-distance relationship and Chris matching residency at the University of Iowa, I came back to Iowa City in 2011. Wasn't happy about it at the moment, but it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. Not him, Iowa City. All right. Yes, I love you, Dare. So I found community and inclusion in many places in Iowa City, including here at Newsong. I decided that this community was worth loving, and I wanted to love this place through service. So I've been practicing architecture in Iowa City since 2001, but I've also been a volunteer and community advocate. I served on the United Way Community Impact Council, where I got to know 30 local not-for-profits very well. Those not-for-profits also receive city funding and provide really important public safety functions. I was a 3-term chair of the Community Leadership Program, where I developed meaningful relationships with professional leaders outside of my profession. I worked with Habitat for Humanity on energy-saving designs for their homes, as well as did a lot of research on the many downsides of manufactured housing. I served as a volunteer and a board member at Old Brick, Friends of Historic Preservation, and Preservation Iowa. Now, I've been interested in public service my whole life, but I feel like now I finally have the skills and knowledge to be effective as a city councilor. Now, while I love Iowa City, I do think that we can be better. And I have many ideas, but I want to focus on 4 key priorities: reinvesting in community spaces and public infrastructure, acting faster on climate change, building desirable, affordable housing, and attracting and retaining quality jobs. City-owned public spaces like parks and pools and rec centers and the senior center and even City Hall are top priority for many Iowa City voters. Our community values public spaces that draw people in and reflect the vitality and uniqueness of our community. But our outdated facilities fail to do that. Our current piecemeal strategy of repairs leads to costly and lackluster results. It's time to focus on comprehensive planning that yields long-lasting, high-quality results. We need to think this way because looking to the future is prudent. We also need to keep equity in mind when we build our public spaces by making them accessible to residents on the east, center, and west of town. Said differently, let's be prudent and just. Between half to 2/3 of Iowa City's budget is spent on infrastructure. That includes nearly all the capital improvement funds and multiple other pieces of other funds. It's critical as City Council have someone on with professional experience in design, planning, contracting, and construction. In the next 5 years, we're going to spend $253 million on capital improvements. Let's be efficient and effective at those investments and have something we can all be proud of. Second, I want to act faster on climate change, and I want to show that through our city buildings. While I'm very pleased that our city has made major strides in public transportation, and I want to keep that momentum going, I want to shift the focus to buildings. This means lowering energy usage and building with climate change and resilience in mind. Our current climate action plans contains goals to reduce energy use and carbon emissions. However, the city hasn't operationalized these goals in their policies or actions. In short, we have the right words and the right language, but that's not enough. We need clear policy that replaces and retrofits city buildings that use fossil fuels and a comprehensive plan to use only renewables. We need to move beyond words into action. Secondly, our climate action plan does not address adequately embodied carbon. Embodied carbon is an accounting for all the pollution caused by construction activities. When we make those $253 million in capital improvement investments, we need to have this in mind. Third, we need to invest in building specifically desirable, affordable houses. Iowa City has a housing shortage, and that shortage is causing high housing costs. In the year 2022, Iowa City had the lowest level of residential lot creation in 30 years. That means our housing problem is going to get worse. A growing number of people are housing burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs, leaving little left for anything else. We must prioritize developing safe, affordable, and desirable housing. The city government has not been able to develop housing at the necessary rate and volume, so we've got to start doing things differently. The city also must lead on development, not follow. The current city council has a responsibility to influence design through policy. That means it has to happen early in the process, not at the very end. Developers, those who are willing to build affordable housing, will thrive when their government partners are predictable. My final top priority is attracting and retaining quality jobs. Now, this has not been a high priority for most city councils but it must be. For 176 years, the University of Iowa has been our prime economic engine. That's changing. The university is not growing. University hospitals and clinics is investing in North Liberty and Coralville. ACT continues to shrink. Pearson has closed their campus north of the interstate. Kirkwood closed their Iowa City campus. Mercy filed for bankruptcy. I'm here to sound the alarm bell. We need to think about job creation and job retention. Our city must work hard to attract employers that will provide great jobs to our diverse workforce. This includes our highly trained and skilled health science workers, but also our laborers too. I want small businesses to thrive too. In downtown, one of our biggest threats to locally owned businesses are the few predatory landlords choking out small businesses with terrible leases. Now, the city council can't do much about interfering with those leases, but we need to take a proactive step to protect those business owners. Now, perhaps my concern for jobs sounds like I'm attaching too much value to the hard work, thrift, and efficiency in one's worldly calling, and I acknowledge that evoking the Protestant work ethic might not be something we can unpack in spirit school today, but I do sincerely believe that purpose and meaning does flow from good, meaningful work. So those are my priorities. I'm sure you guys will have others, and I hope you take the opportunity today to challenge me and maybe propose additional priorities. Hopefully when you're done, you'll believe in me. I love Iowa City. I'm proud of it, and I'm grateful for the generations of people who made our inclusive, safe, environmentally conscientious, and really wonderful city. I want you to vote for me because I think we can build the momentum we have and show the rest of the state that what we do here works. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Okay.
In terms of our mobile home parks and the hedge funds taking them over and what a trap that's become, what can the city do?
Right. So manufactured housing, the challenge of them is not necessarily the construction of them or the smallness of them, but the fact that you buy this thing that is basically stuck on a rented lot. And no one will take an old manufactured home, even if you could afford to move it. And so when lot rents go up, the people who live there have nothing to do other than pay more lot rent or abandon their home in most situations. And so the state does not allow us to put caps on those increases right now. So I think the first step is to probably not consider manufactured housing as a really solid tool for providing affordable housing moving forward. To think about not encouraging that kind of relationship. For the people who live there now, I think that we need to work really hard to try to keep the currently owned by local people in the hands of local people and put a lot of pressure on the out-of-state people who are increasing rents. But we're really hamstrung with what we can actually do about that increase in lot rent. The work that I did with manufactured housing with Habitat was back in 2009, and we got model legislation that actually ended up being a Senate file. That's how long this has been a known problem. Like, it's been coming for a really, really long time. So I don't have a great answer other than we need to help the people who are there right now positionally transition into other forms of housing. And
is it possible for the city to compete? I mean, could the city
purchase
buy land and create its own?
I wouldn't encourage the city to be a landlord because they're notoriously bad at it, but I do think there's an opportunity for a not-for-profit to develop that could do that could purchase and operate one. I haven't heard anybody willing to come up with the capital for that, but yes, sounds like a good idea.
There's a place out east that I read about, the tenants were able to buy and form a co-op. I know that takes a lot of capital.
Yeah, capital and collaboration.
But my friend that lives over on Scott Boulevard, they do have a member organization and they are trying to do what they can.
Yeah. Yeah, the state is not letting us involve ourselves in lease relationships in the way that I think most of us would think is appropriate. Yeah, Lori?
In terms of creating jobs and retaining jobs, like wonder if, or what the city can do. I'm thinking specifically of the University of Iowa hospitals. My daughter just quit there because of the way that the management is treating the workers. Have any ideas for that?
Right. We need to diversify our workforce here. I mean, having a sort of one-shop town is not healthy. So I don't think that we're going to be a city that competes with Cedar Rapids as far as manufacturing and food production, but I do think there are serious opportunities for health science. I mean, IDT is not in Iowa City, it's in Coralville, but I think it's important to nurture and grow those kinds of businesses. We have on Oakdale Boulevard, the university runs an incubator that I think the city could probably take a more active role in promoting. And it doesn't have to be health science work either. The city is working hard, I think, in the South District. There's now a SMID in the South of 6 area, and that area needs to succeed. Like, if you're a guy, you can't buy a pair of pants in Iowa City. Like, Ball's closed, yeah, I think. So, yeah, and I think that it's not been our strong suit. Like, other cities have much more robust economic development infrastructure. And it's not like we haven't been doing it. I don't want to poo-poo the people who've been doing that work, because they have. But I think really focusing on it. The other piece of this is the mercy piece. And I think the city does have a role to orchestrate a soft landing, or be at least a proactive player in making sure that the healthcare workers, I don't care about the buildings as much as I care about the people, don't leave. I mean, the best case scenario is Mercy continues to be a competitor to the university, but that's just not going to happen. The worst case scenario would be that a hedge fund gets Mercy and breaks it off into a million pieces, and the doctors and nurses that we desperately need here already leave town. So I've been asking our city councilors already, like, please get engaged in this. Like, this isn't a selfish thing because my husband works at Mercy. This is critical for our community to retain our healthcare infrastructure.
And what is the attitude when you make that request?
It's not our problem. So, yeah, like, what are we gonna do? It's not our fault, was actually what one person told me.
It's not our fault.
I'm like, I'm not blaming you. I didn't say it was your fault, but we gotta think about it, so.
So I found your kind of list of things closing, not growing, pretty alarming. And where is that in the current city council's agenda?
I'm the only one saying it. I don't want to be an alarmist, the sky is falling, but it does seem like the pieces are starting to come together that it's a real risk. So, and
Is P&G healthy? I don't
they
know.
threaten to leave on a regular basis, but they love our water. We have remarkably good water in Iowa City, so, yeah.
There has been an issue with P&G where they will hire local workers on a temp basis, but then when a good temp job comes up, they won't consider those people working as temps aren't allowed to apply for the good jobs. They'll bring people in from somewhere else. That's something to kind of watch. I mean, like, writ large, I think what you're talking about with the hospital workers and stuff is labor issues. That probably the city should get more involved.
And management.
Yeah.
Well, is
Somehow.
Iowa a friendly labor state?
Sorry, what?
Is Iowa a friendly labor state?
No.
If you're 15.
Yeah, if you're a child laborer, it's very friendly.
Yeah, if you're 14 and want to do a dangerous job.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a devil's advocate, but
But
No.
it is really limited what the city can do on any given issues. It seems like way too big a job, so thank you for even considering stepping into that role.
what do you think the power is that the city has and the council has? I mean, what really can?
So, yeah, I mean, I think that you look at where we spend our money. I mean, I think that's probably the right way to think about what city government does. And it's truly in roads and infrastructure and sewers. So for this group, I wanted to talk about the things that make people excited and that are important to me. I'm not trying to diminish those, but most of the city's work is making sure that the roads are intact, that your toilet flushes, that fresh water comes out of your sink, police and fire. Those are the critical functions of government. So these are important, but those are the things we have to do exceptionally well continually.
But in terms of what you can put in place in policy, is it more of an influence kind of thing, of being given a vision and
Yeah.
moving people along? Or?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, the city does invest for, like, on the economic development issues, we do invest money in it. We invest millions of dollars a year in it, and we partner with Better Together 2030 and ICAD and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. But really elevating the work that they do is something that city council can do. And yeah, I do think that the messaging that we give and what we say matters as far as what we're focusing on, so. Yeah, Jim?
Do you have any ideas on what could be done with the old Kirkwood campus, which has now been shut down and moved to Coralville?
Yeah.
It's in a place now where people who have transportation issues, they can't even get to a junior college anymore.
Yeah.
Where to go?
Yeah, same thing with the driver's license station moving all the way outside of town. So, which Coralville did come to the bat with they now have a shuttle bus that will take people to get to the driver's license station. So they're,
I
yeah,
haven't heard that, that's wonderful.
yeah. So I haven't ridden it, but I heard about it, I think at the League of Women Voters meeting. So, but yeah, Kirkwood's location was really ideal for Iowa City. We're a population that needed the education that they provided, was in a district where the people who had benefited greatly from that and where the employers are that are there. It's my understanding that probably they will purchase the building, Procter & Gamble. So, but I have heard no plans of actually using it as a Kirkwood campus, so as education. So the city does have joint meetings with all of the joint entity meetings. And I don't really know what's happened behind the scenes as far as conversations between the city of Iowa City, Johnson County, and Kirkwood, but they do participate collaboratively. And so I would strongly advocate in our position as city council to get resources in Iowa City.
I'm worried about the southeast corner of town because you've got a derelict mall, you've got a closed down Kirkwood campus, the Department of Transportation has moved itself way over west,
Yeah.
Coralville, west, and the whole area seems to be collapsing.
There are some bright spots.
Something the city can do?
Yeah, there are bright spots. I think that what used to be it's called Pepperwood Plaza, I think stuff and furniture store. So there's the downtown district in Iowa City is a SMID, or self-sustaining municipal district, which means they self-tax and they get money to like do improvements. They made one of those in the South District, and so there are businesses that are starting to evolve in that sort of old strip mall area, including like Roy Sands Soul Food, coffee shop, and some other things. And they now have an executive director that can kind of promote the area. I mean, marketing and promotion is needed for businesses to succeed. And so I think the city needs to absolutely support those efforts and encourage that district to grow. And think about infrastructure investments down there that will support that. Right now, if you're on a bike, you don't really want to get from downtown to Pepperwood Plaza because you're going through Highway 6. And I think that a thoughtful redesign of that whole corridor from the southeast corner of town all the way up 6 past Big Grove to downtown is something we need to do that makes it more pedestrian friendly, bike friendly, and draws people through town along what I would hope to someday be a thriving commercial corridor.
Angie Jordan's a miracle worker. She's
Yes.
the director of the SMID. Angie Jordan is her name. She's brilliant. So
Yeah.
couldn't be in better hands, the South District.
About trades. I mean, people in this town, especially in our congregation, of course, not exactly tradespeople, but if anybody who's a property owner or was a property owner knows it's really hard to get help, a plumber, anybody, a house painter, you name it. Or you can get a volunteer organization. It seems to me that maybe the city council could at least emphasize the importance of trade, of supporting trade groups that are willing to apprentice people.
Sure.
I mean, I just feel like that is really missing here.
It's back to housing affordability.
Yeah.
I mean, but some of our friends know a lot, but even so.
The Foundation for the Trades that involves the Carpenters Union,
I don't
and
know much about that, but
yeah, that's something I'm learning more about.
Kirkwood
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
in part that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm 41 years old. When I went to college, you either went to college or you were a waste, and that's just terrible. And like
But
we've
they
learned,
make really good money now.
oh, it's terrible that like we had this myth that labor jobs weren't useful or valuable. They earn great money and have honest work, and we need to like immediately in high school tell these kids this is a great job opportunity and a life.
I just feel like the apprenticeship system, which is how most of them learn, I
Yeah.
think, really ought to be given at least lip service.
Yeah.
In the city council, if not some money.
So the Labor Center at the U of I actually has a pre-apprenticeship program where they pay people to come prepare to take it and guarantee their placement as an apprentice. So that's
Fantastic.
another thing that I think the city
Okay.
could really partner with.
Okay. I'd like to learn more about that.
Is women in the trade still going? That's been a disappointing program because of the way women are treated by other workers, male workers. But I suppose it's a prejudice of mine, but men who work with their hands don't tolerate women in their trades very well. John?
I want to change the topic just a little bit. I'm sure other people will have more questions about issues. So you're familiar with what it's like to be a member of the city council. When you think about putting your hours in every week at the city council, is there something that you're going to be called upon to do that is going to really challenge your patience and your faith?
I do watch city council meetings, and you can speak for 3 minutes about whatever you're feeling or thinking, and the city council just stares at you and you speak, is really challenges me, just not even being the person who has to receive it. So I don't have a solution for how to fix that, but it just seems like a broken system where people show up and there's sometimes really valuable inputs, and sometimes it's people who want to recite their diary journal for the day that doesn't really matter. So I think that's troubling for me to watch that. And then sometimes people will say things that are terrible, that are wrong, that are racist, that are homophobic, that are factually incorrect. And the current strategy is don't engage. So you just sit there and say, thank you for your 3 minutes. Thank you for 3 minutes.
The council kind of coasts. And the staff in Iowa City is just incredible.
Yes.
Very informed.
Yes.
And it is overwhelming, I'm sure, for a new city council member to listen to a, half an hour report
Yeah.
from some staff member. But maybe they need a different balance there, so the council members are also informed.
Yes. Yeah. No. I want to be the informed person. Those packets are massive, and I do read them, and I'm not on council. So, and I get excited about planning and zoning issues. So that's that's just me being weird. Yeah.
I'm planning and zoning. I don't know how that works, but it seems like the city council might have dynamic people on it and discuss big picture climate and, really have good ideas flowing. But the real decisions are made by commissions, and I guess I'm interested in how ideas at the city council level kind of get reflected in the more standing commissions that make the actual decisions.
Yeah. There's the 22, 23 commissions we have, and our city council doesn't have the ability to digest all that information. So I sometimes think that we've committed some things to death at city council level. And I think that sort of a thoughtful way of reorganizing commissions and might be helpful. The other side of that is like when you're on city council, you're one of seven. Like if one city council member has a feeling or a thought or something that they want to do all on their own, like it's your responsibility as a counselor to find 2 to 3 friends, because then it becomes a real thing.
Kind
But
of like a new song.
yes,
If you want something to happen,
Yeah.
just get a couple of people together and make it happen.
yeah. And I hear current city council members express frustration quietly and not so quietly about I'm not getting my way, and I'm like, well, who are your 3 friends, on city council? But as far as the commissions, the quantity of commissions, I mean, we have to respect the work that they're doing because they do know more about the issue. And I find it sometimes troubling when a commission has done a lot of work on something, makes a recommendation, and the city council says, I don't know, I'm gonna think differently about this. I mean, that's their prerogative, but I think it needs to be a pretty big discovery to change that sort of recommendation. Yeah, Dale?
Quick planning zoning question. I know there's been a proposal to allow duplexes everywhere in Iowa City. Where is that proposal?
Yeah, so Kelsey Patrick Faris actually has a great article in the Press Citizen today about the trajectory of all of that, and she took the words out of my mouth about like the right way to think about some of these planning and zoning changes that are coming forward. I think that some of them that were proposed initially will probably not continue to move forward, like accessory dwelling units. We're still going to require owner occupation of one of those sites. So, and that seems like a reasonable change to the proposal. But it's been 8 years in the making to get to where we're at right now. So when people are saying, we're surprised by this, it's like, well, no, it's been going on there's been a lot of public input. And I think it will make a meaningful impact in building and making housing in Iowa City, which is what we need. So, and I'm a preservationist, so I like to save stuff, but like, not everything needs to be saved, and we can be creative. So,
What can city council do to attract new businesses for, to get more workers and, what can city council do?
yeah, it would be really careful about cash incentives for people to come here, but that is a toolkit. TIF funding, back-end TIF, we have a really robust mechanism for how to use that and what we need to get out of it as a city. I wouldn't be worried about using small amounts of that. I don't know if is anybody here from Coralville? But Coralville's use of TIF has just been reckless and crazy. It's awful. They're in a financial terror.
They're the same tip, it always will be here.
Yeah.
Every time it's going to expire then.
Yeah, but I do think that we can use financial incentives to attract people here. That's what everyone else is doing, and we do need to compete. We need to be regional in our thinking, and I know sometimes, like I kind of alluded towards, North Liberty and Coralville is stealing UIHC, but we don't gain a lot from fighting with Coralville and North Liberty. We need to, I think regionally, and that's been a challenge.
Related to that, I was going to ask, how does Iowa City and its suburbs, how do they communicate with each other, and then does that just get subsumed into Johnson County and then everybody goes home, or what happens?
Yeah, they do joint entity meetings where they kind of come up with collaborative processes so that you understand what the other groups are thinking. My understanding is the collaboration amongst the city managers is actually very, very strong right now. Like the 3 city managers, Coralville, North Liberty, and Iowa City spend a lot of time together because they get it. They get that they need to collaborate. And if they're fighting over Von Mauer for the rest of time, like, we don't get anywhere. So, but yeah, and the county is, I would like to see them be a little bit more organized and planned and proactive, especially on transportation issues, because we have really reasonably good transportation in Iowa City. And of course, it's free now. I encourage you all to use the free bus. But once you get outside Iowa City, you're screwed. Yeah.
Well, and once you get outside the ordinary work week, so
Nights.
work on Sunday,
Yeah.
you're out of luck.
Yeah.
Work at 7 in the morning.
I collected signatures for the petition downtown one night and found that almost every single bartender, drag queen, and server lives in North Liberty and Coralville. And they have a terrible time getting home at 2 a.m. So it's 2 problems. They can't afford to live here, and they don't have a great way to get home. But I think
What kinds of projects do the city council managers work on together? And what kinds of things are joint?
Sure. So if you want to have like a big event in the area, like Ragbri was a great example of probably 100 meetings of them trying to figure out we're all going to benefit from this. We're doing it. It's an economic benefit and also just a city pride thing. So, I mean, it sounds unimportant, but the economic impact of Ragbri was maybe one of the larger events that we're going to see this year here. Jingle Cross, we kind of lost that, but the new Extreme Arena, even though it's in Coralville, it's funded by CVB dollars, which is motel hotel tax. And motel and hotel tax.
And that comes on,
People who stay in hotels.
I beg your pardon?
If you stay in a hotel, there's always an additional tax.
And how is that joined among all these suburbs?
It goes into a conventioners and visitors bureau. Actually, it goes to the city who then returns it back. There's a mechanism that I'm going to botch if I say it, so I don't. But they need to be collaborative on how they share that money and how they spend it. And transportation. They are talking about transportation, and we, Iowa City, are spending a lot of money on it, and Coralville and North Liberty are not and do not want to, and that's a real big impediment. Like, it's not. We as Iowa City can't support public transportation for Coralville and North Liberty, but I think the county could take a proactive role.
I'd like to talk about public safety for a minute.
Sure.
I don't read local papers, and I don't watch much news. So what I get is very refined. I'm concerned about human trafficking, gang activity, and drug presence in the communities.
Yeah.
Do the police forces kind of operate independently? I mean,
No.
I know they're arms of the city governments they serve,
Yeah.
but I haven't heard you say anything.
Yeah, no, public safety is very much an important topic in Iowa City, and I think it includes two really important aspects: prevention, which in this community we've been really far ahead of the game as far as developing a really robust not-for-profit ecosystem that helps people not get into trouble. And that goes all the way from like neighborhood centers doing early childhood education, all the way up to, DVIP, shelter house. I mean, we're doing a lot of good work. And then there's policing. I mean, we need police because there are bad people. We're in a state full of guns. We know that there's sex traffickers. We know that there's drugs. We know that there's all kinds of problems. Right now, there's some people want to sort of say that prevention and policing, we need to sort of take from one to give to the other, and I don't think that's an accurate description. Our police department in Iowa City is very, very good. We're very, very small too. They were like 1.12 officers per 10,000 people, where the national average is over 2.5. So we have a really small and efficient police department. And some would like to diminish its size, and I don't think that's responsible. I think that the other thing about police is they are directly accountable to the citizens. Like everything they do is under a microscope. In Iowa City, we were ahead of the game in collecting use of force data. We were ahead of the game in having a citizens review police board. They're all required to wear their body cams, and so everything they do is under a microscope. And I think that's good. What they're doing is important, dangerous work, and if they do something wrong or bad, they need to be held accountable, and we have all the mechanisms in place to hold them accountable. But we're a safe, relatively safe community, but there are bad things out there. There are shootings here, and we do need the police.
Well, there are places I won't go at night.
Yeah. Which places?
The southeast side, for one.
Yeah.
But I live in a bubble.
Yeah.
I don't go out. I don't feel safe in a lot of places by myself at night. I won't go to Walmart in Coralville alone.
Yeah. Yeah, John?
Sort of strongly related to June's questions and concerns, how much discretion does the local community, the city council have, if any, over gun control policies?
Almost nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We're totally hamstrung by the state. And we see data from the county attorney's office about the number of illegal guns seized, and it's going up quickly. So we can be aggressive about getting guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. And we need a mechanism to do that, which is, the sheriff's office and police department. But that's, unless you have other ideas, that's the only thing that I know we can do.
I'm connected to something called Hawk Alert through the university that
Oh, yeah.
I can't seem to get separated from. So it's unbelievable, the number of nights at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. that my phone starts shrieking and a robo voice says, shooting in the Penn Mall or shooting here, shooting there, stay away from this area. Then I know I have to turn my phone off because they'll call me every hour with an update.
Yeah.
But, I would guess as a 50, 60-year-old long resident of Iowa City that what used to be an annual event is now more like a weekly event in terms of guns.
Yeah. It's sad. We live in a country and in a state and a city filled with guns. I do think we have a remarkably good police department, and I don't think it's just about funding the police department. I think it's also about being respectful of the work that they do and acknowledging them for the hard work that they're doing and the danger that they endure. I know that we have to be really mindful as a room full of white people about systemic racism and how that intersects with the work that they do. And also ask permission from communities of color about how we should be advocating for them about systemic racism. But I do think that if you look at a national narrative about bad police, I would encourage anyone to look at our local police force and get to know one of them and understand that they're really well trained. They're really good people. And we used to pay them better than any other city around us, so we got the best ones, and that's not true anymore. So I would encourage us to be ahead of the pack as far as compensation, pay, and respect for the police.
Are you running citywide, or are you running for a certain district?
At large. Yep, I'm running. There's 2 at-large seats that are up for election. Both are actually vacant, so it'll be somebody new sitting in those 2 seats.
And how many people are running?
3 people for 2 seats. Everything changed, so if you were watching the election, there was the weird mix. Somebody who was an incumbent moved to a district, and somebody joined at the last minute, so.
So are you having a forum? Is the league having a forum?
They haven't reached out to me yet, so.
3, and it is true that you're at large at 3.
3 are running for 2 seats at large, and 3 are running for 1 seat in District A, which means this is going to confuse everybody in Iowa City.
Well, they are having.
But they have a primary for A only. So if you live in A, there'll be a primary on October 10th.
Okay.
But I'm not in a primary because there's not twice as many people as there are seats. We have a kind of complicated system.
If you're confused, call the auditor's office.
Yeah.
We'll explain it to you.
Yes. Yeah, call Carolyn.
I'm going to say the Press Citizen, which almost never covers any city council, city government stuff, finally the other day had a front page headline that said special election called for.
They called the primary a special election?
Yes.
Oh, no. That's tough. That's tough.
I mean, there's no connection, there's nobody there with any history, there's nobody there with any understanding of government.
It's tough to actually, I've noticed that when I decided to run back in late June, early July, I wrote a press release and was so nervous about it. Was it perfect? Was it right? And I gave it to all of the local news sources and nobody covered it.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting,
The
so.
Press Citizen staff has shrunk again.
Yeah. KCJJ did, actually. I'm going to put a plug in for those guys. They actually are doing a good job with local news if you guys don't know them. KCCJ? KCJJ, I'm sorry. It's the
JJ.
KC.
There were, and just maybe a year or 2 ago, they were covering the city council. A lot.
Yeah.
I guess.
But yeah, I'm putting stuff on Facebook and sending out as many press releases as I can and just see what sticks. Yeah. So.
So when are you going to run for governor?
Ha! Let's see how good I am. Yeah. Says Chris.
Chris draws the line.
Well,
They've already asked me to divorce them once.
right. We did. We told John, we said, you married us, you divorce us. So, well, well, I really do appreciate all of you for coming today and for all your support. Like this community has been really encouraging and supporting to me and to my campaign and to us even before all of this. So this is a really special place. And talking about my faith made me a little nuts, but it was probably good for me. So thank you, Jane. But anyway, if you guys want any more information, reach out. I have like cards and stuff, and I got signs in my backyard, but I also want to be like not yucky about using church for political purposes, even though that's exactly what this was. But
Something more like a brochure or a paper or something. I have a coffee group.
yeah. Ask, seek, and ye shall find.
I'm not in Iowa City.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, here. Anyway,
Very good.
I'll
Thank you.
all right, I appreciate that. So anyway, I will actually just let you guys pass them around and take what you want. So
One of the main purposes of adult forum or spirit school is to learn to talk about your faith. So thank you for breaking the ice.
you're very welcome.
And
So,
I have faith in you, and I'm very glad to run.
thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that very much.